Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, was rich and powerful but chose to live a simple life. Why would a man who had everything give it all up? What was the secret and what lessons can we learn from his life? If you want to learn more about Stoic philosophy and how to live freely, not controlled by money or power, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's learn from the valuable lessons in Seneca's life to change the way we look at life. Seneca was one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in ancient Rome. As the trusted advisor to Emperor Nero, he wielded enormous political influence and amassed vast fortunes. From the outside, his life seemed perfect: luxury, power, and control over his destiny. But behind the facade of opulence, Seneca faced a battle that was far more profound than any external enemy: the struggle for inner freedom. In an empire where wealth and power defined success, Seneca chose a different path. His true power, he believed, lay not in the riches he had accumulated or the influence he commanded, but in his ability to master himself. He realized that no matter how much gold one possesses, how high one rises, or how many people bow before you, if the mind is not free, then none of it matters. One day, sitting alone in his villa, Seneca pondered this: what is freedom if not the mastery of oneself? He saw that while many people spend their lives chasing after the illusion of external success, true freedom lies in controlling our inner world, our thoughts, our emotions, our reactions. And that, Seneca believed, is the only real wealth. He didn't just talk about self-mastery, he lived it. Despite the corrupt environment he was surrounded by, despite the chaos of Roman politics, Seneca remained calm, composed, and guided by his inner principles. He chose wisdom over wealth, virtue over vanity, and peace over the noise of the world. What's your choice? In a world that constantly pushes us to seek more money, more power, more status, can we find the strength to choose peace? To break free from the chains of external validation? Seneca's life is a reminder: true freedom isn't found in the world outside but within ourselves. Despite living in opulence, Seneca constantly reminded himself of the fragility of everything around him. In a world where his wealth and status could easily blind him to the transient nature of life, he made a deliberate choice to live with awareness. His comfort, both physical and emotional, was a luxury he rarely allowed himself. Instead, he practiced what we call voluntary discomfort. While most of the Roman elite indulged in lavish feasts, extravagant banquets, and endless entertainment, Seneca sought to remove himself from such excess. He purposefully subjected himself to discomfort, not out of necessity but to strengthen his spirit. By depriving himself of the pleasures that most sought after, he sharpened his mind and cultivated a resilience that no fortune could buy. Every day he chose to live simply. He slept on hard floors, wore plain clothing, and even fasted, all to remind himself that the things of this world are fleeting. To Seneca, true peace wasn't found in the comforts of life, but in the strength of character to endure hardship without losing one's sense of purpose. Why did he do this? To demonstrate that happiness is not the result of external circumstances, but the product of inner discipline. He knew that the only thing in life that's truly under our control is how we respond to the world. And by embracing discomfort, he was preparing himself for life's inevitable challenges, not with fear or resistance but with courage and composure. In our world of constant gratification, it's easy to forget the power of simplicity. But Seneca's life offers us a profound lesson. True strength isn't found in avoiding hardship, it's found in facing it with grace. Seneca once said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, but because we do not dare that they are difficult." This simple yet profound statement speaks to the immense power our minds hold over the challenges we face. We often think that obstacles are insurmountable, too big, too complicated, too overwhelming. But Seneca's wisdom reminds us that the real difficulty lies not in the challenge itself, but in our perception of it. The moment we convince ourselves that something is too hard to achieve, we've already made it difficult. In truth, the barrier isn't the task ahead, it's the mental resistance we create. Think about it. How many times have we hesitated to take action simply because we felt unprepared or fearful? How many opportunities have we let slip away not because they were out of our reach, but because we didn't believe we could succeed? The challenge becomes harder only when we decide to make it so, when our minds tell us it's impossible before we even begin. Seneca teaches us that the power to overcome any difficulty lies within our mindset. When we approach a task with a determined, focused mind, we break down the walls of fear and doubt that stand before us. The difficult becomes possible, the impossible becomes achievable. In every challenge, the first battle is with our own thoughts. So, the question isn't how difficult is this task? It's how much do I believe in my ability to conquer it? The moment we choose courage over fear, the moment we choose action over hesitation, the difficulty begins to fade, and we discover strength we never knew we had. Seneca, despite his immense wealth and powerful position, never allowed money, power, or public opinion to dictate his actions or define his worth. In a world where success is often measured by one's bank account or influence, Seneca stood apart. He understood that true freedom comes not from acquiring wealth, but from being free of its grip. He wasn't blind to the fact that wealth can bring comfort and security, but he refused to let it become his master. He saw money as a tool, not a source of happiness. While most would have been consumed by the pursuit of even more wealth or the status it could bring, Seneca focused on the cultivation of his mind, character, and wisdom. The idea that material possessions or power could control him seemed absurd to him, for he knew that these were fleeting and unreliable. Seneca's wealth didn't define him. His ability to remain detached from it did. He could walk away from it at any moment, knowing that his happiness and peace didn't depend on the world's fleeting values. To him, true wealth wasn't in accumulating riches, but in the mastery of self, in the ability to remain unaffected by the opinions of others or the whims of fortune. This is a radical lesson for us today. We live in a world where external validation often seems to hold the key to our happiness. But Seneca's life teaches us that peace and fulfillment come when we realize that nothing outside of us, not money, not fame, not power, can control our inner world unless we allow it. The question then is, what controls you? Is it the pursuit of more, or is it the strength to remain grounded in your own values, your own sense of purpose, and your own peace? Seneca's choice was clear, and it's a powerful one for us all to consider. Seneca taught us the power of mental preparation for loss. He believed that to live fully, we must confront the inevitable reality that nothing is permanent. His advice was simple yet profound. Imagine losing everything you hold dear, your wealth, your status, your loved ones, and prepare yourself for that moment. At first this might sound morbid, even unsettling. But Seneca wasn't urging us to dwell on negativity or to live in fear. Instead, he was advocating for a powerful mental exercise, to face the possibility of loss with equanimity. By contemplating the worst-case scenario, we build resilience. We learn to detach our happiness and peace from the things that are beyond our control. Seneca's approach wasn't about inviting tragedy into our lives but about preparing our minds for it. By imagining loss, we reduce the shock and devastation when it actually happens. If we have mentally and emotionally prepared for it, we are less likely to be blindsided or consumed by grief. Instead, we can accept loss with grace and continue moving forward, undeterred by what we cannot change. This mental discipline is particularly relevant in a world where we are constantly attached to external sources of happiness, possessions, achievements, and relationships. We are conditioned to believe that these things define us, and when they're threatened we feel like we're losing a part of ourselves. But Seneca reminds us that the real strength comes from within. If we can accept the impermanence of life, and if we can prepare ourselves for the inevitable moments of loss, we free ourselves from fear. We no longer need to live in dread of losing what we have. Instead, we learn to embrace the present moment, knowing that we have the resilience to weather any storm. So, what if we lost everything today? Would we crumble, or would we find strength in the knowledge that we are more than our possessions and circumstances? Seneca's wisdom invites us to prepare for that loss, so when it comes we can rise stronger. Seneca believed that to truly live we must learn how to die. This may seem paradoxical, but his philosophy was rooted in a deep understanding of life's impermanence. He argued that the fear of death often paralyzes us, preventing us from living fully. But in reality, death is not something to fear. It is an inevitable part of life, a natural conclusion that must be accepted rather than resisted. For Seneca, the key to living a fulfilled life was not to avoid the thought of death, but to embrace it. He taught that by acknowledging our mortality, we can live more meaningfully. When we understand that our time is limited, we are prompted to make the most of each moment, to focus on what truly matters, and to shed the distractions of trivial pursuits. Seneca didn't see death as an end to fear, but as a companion to life. He believed that by accepting death, we free ourselves from the constant anxiety that so often consumes us. The fear of the unknown, the dread of what we cannot control, tends to overshadow our lives. But if we confront this fear directly, we realize that it is not death itself that causes suffering, it is our resistance to it. Imagine living each day not as if it's our last, but as if we've already made peace with the idea that one day it will end. This acceptance allows us to live more fully, without the heavy burden of fear holding us back. We begin to see each day as a gift, and every moment becomes an opportunity to live in accordance with our values, to cherish relationships, and to contribute to something greater than ourselves. Seneca's wisdom challenges us to reflect. What would we do differently if we lived as if we had nothing to fear from death? Would we waste less time, hold on to grudges less, and pursue our passions more boldly? By learning how to die, we truly learn how to live. Seneca chose to live with integrity, even in the midst of a world filled with manipulation, deceit, and self-interest. He found himself at the heart of the Roman Empire, serving as an advisor to Emperor Nero, a position rife with political intrigue and moral compromise. Yet, despite the temptations and pressures to abandon his values, Seneca remained steadfast in his belief that true worth lies in living a virtuous life. In a time when power was often pursued through deceit and ambition, Seneca chose a different path, one of moral clarity and ethical consistency. He refused to let the toxic environment of the imperial court corrupt his character. To him, integrity was not negotiable, and he saw it as the bedrock of a meaningful life. Seneca understood that the pursuit of virtue was not always easy, especially when surrounded by people who valued wealth, status, and power above all else. But he believed that integrity wasn't just a choice, it was the measure of who we are, the foundation upon which everything else is built. In the face of temptation, he turned inward, holding firm to his values, and saw this as the ultimate act of freedom. For Seneca, living with integrity meant choosing what was right, even when it was inconvenient or unpopular. It meant speaking the truth, not for personal gain but because truth was its own reward. It meant treating others with fairness and respect, regardless of their social status or political influence. In a world where many sold their soul for power, Seneca refused to compromise his principles. In our own lives, we are often faced with situations where we must choose between convenience and integrity. The question is not whether doing the right thing is easy, it rarely is, but whether we are willing to stand firm in our values when the world pushes us to bend. Seneca's life serves as a powerful reminder that integrity is not just a moral choice, it is the key to living a life of purpose, meaning, and true freedom. Seneca often wrote letters to his friends, reminding them of life's fleeting nature and the importance of gratitude. His letters, filled with wisdom and personal reflections, were more than just pieces of correspondence. They became timeless treasures of Stoic philosophy, preserved for centuries and still relevant today. In his letters, Seneca frequently addressed the fragility of life. He urged his friends to remember that time is the one thing we cannot recover once lost. "You may delay, but time will not," he wrote, emphasizing how easily we can become consumed by distractions, forgetting that every moment is precious. These letters were not simply warnings, they were gentle calls to action, inviting his friends to live with greater awareness and intention. Along with his reflections on time, Seneca's letters often reminded his readers to cultivate a deep sense of gratitude. In a world that constantly tempts us to look for more wealth, more success, more recognition, Seneca urged his friends to appreciate what they already had. He understood that gratitude is the antidote to dissatisfaction. By acknowledging the blessings, no matter how small, we shift our focus from what we lack to what we possess, creating a life of contentment and peace. Seneca's letters weren't just philosophical musings, they were practical guides for living a virtuous life amidst the chaos of the world. He wrote with a sense of urgency as if to remind his friends that every day matters. His words, carefully crafted and deeply thoughtful, were meant to be a steady guide through the uncertainties of life. Today these letters serve as a treasure trove of wisdom, offering us timeless advice on how to navigate our own lives. In a world that often moves too fast, Seneca's reminders to embrace the present moment, to acknowledge the transient nature of existence, and to cultivate gratitude offer a path to a more fulfilled and meaningful life. Just as his letters influenced those of his time, they continue to resonate with us, echoing the eternal truths that transcend time and circumstance. When Seneca was accused of treason and forced to commit suicide, he faced his death with remarkable calmness and grace, embodying the very Stoic principles he had taught throughout his life. His final moments were not filled with fear, regret, or resistance, but with acceptance and composure, a testament to his unwavering commitment to living according to his philosophy. In the face of certain death, Seneca didn't flinch. He had spent his life preparing for this very moment, not by avoiding it, but by embracing the reality of mortality. He had long believed that death is not something to fear, but something to accept with dignity. And when the time came for him to face it, he did so with the same calm demeanor he had cultivated through years of practicing Stoicism. Seneca's acceptance of death was not passive resignation, but a powerful demonstration of his internal strength. He had spent his life practicing the very principles he now lived out in his final moments. detachment from external circumstances, control over his emotions, and the understanding that life itself is fleeting and fragile. The wealth, the power, the influence, all were temporary, and he had learned to find peace in their impermanence. As he prepared to end his life, Seneca's actions were a reflection of his teachings. We cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. Even in the face of injustice and death, he chose to maintain his integrity and peace of mind. His calm acceptance of death was the culmination of a life well lived, one that had been dedicated to virtue, self-mastery, and inner tranquility. Seneca's death was not a defeat, but a final affirmation of his Stoic philosophy. He had lived as he had taught, and in his last breath, he proved that the Stoic ideal of emotional resilience and mental discipline could withstand even the greatest of life's challenges. His death, as much as his life, became a powerful lesson for those who followed him. To face death not as a tragedy, but as a natural part of existence that can be met with peace, dignity, and strength. Seneca is living proof that it is possible to exist in the lap of luxury without allowing oneself to be enslaved by it. Despite his immense wealth and high status in Roman society, he never let material possessions or external circumstances define him. For Seneca, true freedom was not about the abundance of riches, but about the power to remain detached from them, to live with integrity, discipline, and inner peace, regardless of the external world's pressures. He recognized that wealth, power, and fame are transient, easily gained, easily lost. Yet, while many people are consumed by the pursuit of more, Seneca lived by the belief that the key to freedom lies within the mind. External circumstances may change, but the inner world is where true sovereignty resides. The mind, once disciplined and focused, cannot be swayed by fleeting external forces. Living in luxury, Seneca could have indulged in excess, surrounded himself with indulgences, and sought pleasure at every turn. But instead he chose simplicity. He often practiced voluntary discomfort, deliberately removing himself from comforts to sharpen his mind and spirit. This wasn't out of denial, but to demonstrate that his happiness and peace weren't dependent on wealth or worldly comforts. True freedom, Seneca taught, comes from not being ruled by what we own or what others think of us. It's the ability to stand firm in our values, to remain unshaken by the changing tides of fortune. No matter the riches or status one might possess, it's the state of the inner self that determines true independence. In a world that often ties freedom to external success, Seneca's life is a powerful reminder that true liberty is not about what we have, but how we choose to relate to it. It lies in the mastery of the mind, in the ability to remain steadfast in our principles, and in the understanding that no amount of wealth or influence can take away the freedom we hold within. Thank you for watching. Seneca's life teaches us that inner freedom is what matters most, not power or wealth. Share your thoughts and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next lessons on Stoic philosophy.